Welcome to Mintel's Little Conversation podcast.
Welcome to another episode of Mintel's Little Conversation, where our experts bring you fresh ideas and new perspectives on how consumers eat, drink, shop, groom and think. I'm Andrew Davidson, SVP and Chief Insights Officer for Mintel Compare Media, based in New York. And in today's episode, we're going to be talking about a sporting event that in America is typically among the most watched TV broadcasts of the year. Nearly 100 million tune in every year, whether it's for the game, whether it's for the halftime show, whether it's for the ads. Of course, I'm talking about the Super Bowl, which takes place on February 7th in Tampa, Florida. Now, due to the pandemic, the Super Bowl is different this year. We will be talking about this. We'll be talking about the cultural impact and cutting through all of that noise to assess what it really means for brands and what it means for marketers. Now, joining me to discuss this today, I'm delighted to welcome our guests. We have Colin O'Brien, Sarah Nettesheim, and Nick Batt, all based in Chicago. Welcome to the pod.
Thanks, Andrew.
Hello.
Hello. Well, okay, welcome. Let's do quick intros. Just give us a bit of background. Tell us your role. How long have you been at Mintel?
Hi, I am Colin O'Brien. I am the sports analyst, part of the sports and gaming library for Mintel Reports. And I've been at Mintel a little over a year, so this is my second Super Bowl covering now.
Hi, I'm Sarah Nettesheim, and I've been at Mintel for just over 2.5 years. I'm a consumer insights analyst with expertise in social media and social listening, meaning that I analyze social data and conversations to glean insights into how consumers speak and feel about various topics and brands across industries.
And hi, I'm Nick Batt. I'm a senior research analyst on the Compare Media team, where we analyze marketing spend, marketing creative, and understand what that means for brands in the overall marketing landscape. And I've been on the Compare Media team for about 2 years now, but actually this is my third Super Bowl that I'm covering.
Excellent. Well, thank you. Welcome to you all. I know we've got the ideal roster of guests to discuss this topic today. So to kick things off, Colin, as our resident sports analyst, perhaps you could sort of set the scene, break it down for us. What's happening with Super Bowl 55? For
sure. So we'll start with the obvious. The two teams are the Kansas City Chiefs and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, each headlined by their star quarterbacks, Tom Brady for the Buccaneers, Patrick Mahomes for the Chiefs. Two of the biggest names in the sport and in all sports, really. And we really had kind of a battle of the greatest of all time in Tom Brady and perhaps the greatest we've yet to see in Patrick Mahomes. And so that's from the field, the game perspective. From the extracurricular aspects, we have The Weeknd is the halftime performer, and a little bit younger than some of the halftime performers in the past. And then we also have some implications based on the pandemic. So only 22,000 people will be in attendance at the stadium. And among them, 7,500 will be vaccinated healthcare workers. So that was a push from the NFL to honor some of the frontline workers from the pandemic in the biggest event of the year for them.
So it's going to be a very different Super Bowl this year. When I think about the Super Bowl, it's long been this celebration of America, proudly American, big, bold, patriotic. I think of the pageantry of the Super Bowl. As someone who didn't grow up in this country, I'm actually a little envious of the spectacle. But what does the Super Bowl mean for you?
So for me, it's typically a reason to gather with a big group of friends, which obviously is not possible this year. Social mentions of the Super Bowl and parties are actually down 78% compared to this time last year, which I thought was very telling. So for this year, I would say it's more of a welcome distraction for me from the monotony of life during lockdown.
Yeah, and for me, the Super Bowl is those in-home gatherings that you might have a long-standing tradition of, meeting up with multiple families watching the Super Bowl. I've never had the fortune of having my team, the Buffalo Bills, in the Super Bowl. So, it's always been very much sitting back, enjoying the entertainment of the game, whether that means the commercials, the halftime show, or the actual football event itself. But, for me, it has always been a time where you get together, you maybe, throw down a couple dollars on a Super Bowl squares contest and, you see who can, win the big prize at the end. But it's always been a big social event for me.
Do you remember your first Super Bowl?
Oh, gosh. I think I do. I think it was 2001, which was right after, or 2002, right after 9/11. Patriots played the Rams, and that was a big, unifying moment for a lot of the country. That was after the World Series in 2001. That was a huge event, and something that went a long way in unifying the country around the tragic event that had happened in 9/11.
Yeah.
And then for me, I think the Super Bowl is kind of the culmination of the whole season for me, obviously. But I spend every Sunday watching football for 17 weeks of regular season and throughout the month of January in the playoffs. And it all leads up to this one moment where, in an ideal situation, you're gathering with friends and family, perhaps, and all watching it together. And just enjoying all aspects of the game, whether it be the game, the ads, the halftime show. There is something for everyone. So obviously that's going to be a bit missing this year. And for me though, just like thinking back over historically, it's kind of perfect for this year because all of my big moments that kind of stand out in Super Bowl pretty much have Tom Brady in there. So it's kind of been for better or worse. Yeah, whether it be the same with Nick, my first Super Bowl memory was kind of that 2001 season where they beat the Rams, and then whether it be 2007 when they undefeated Patriots lost, or their comeback versus the Falcons. Like kind of all the big moments that stick out in my head for Super Bowls were involving Tom Brady. So hopefully that bodes well for this year as well.
Yeah, well, it seems fitting that he seems that he's back this year. And at the end of this, I'll ask you before your predictions for the game itself. But we'll get to that at the end. Now, of course, so you mentioned so many things that are different about the Super Bowl this year. If you think about the backdrop coming into this, a divided country, a pandemic, an economic crisis. We speak about this, the Super Bowl is so representative of all things America. But, what cultural role does the Super Bowl play in this environment, in this current environment that we're living in now?
Yeah, so I definitely think that the Super Bowl does play a big role in the fact that it gathers, as you mentioned at the top, 100 million people, all around one television screen. In terms of a unifying aspect, I think some of that might be tempered just in the past 4 to 5 years, how much the NFL has entered the political discussion, whether that's, players kneeling for the national anthem that's taken place since 2017, or this year where, a lot of people thought that football shouldn't have been played at all. Given the pandemic. So it's definitely unifying in that sense, but at the same time, it can divide some people based on their preconceived notions of, how the world is going right now.
Yeah, I definitely agree with what you're saying, Nick. When I looked at social conversations over the last 2 months, only 64% of them were positive about the Super Bowl compared to 91% during the same period last year. So people are definitely feeling negatively about it, but you also have to keep in mind that social media chatter is inherently going to magnify extreme emotions. And since consumers have more reasons than ever to feel negative going into the Super Bowl this year, they're just feeling really critical, and that's coming out on social media. So that shadow could hang over Super Bowl 55, just because not as many people are going to be tweeting something like watching the Super Bowl, having a good time. They're going to social media with hot takes, and since there's a lot of negativity going around the world right now, that could come out.
Yeah, Sarah, if it's for our listeners' sake, just explain perhaps, how we define what's positive versus negative?
Yeah. So the tool that I use to look into social conversations is able to very specifically analyze different vocabulary to determine whether something is negative or positive. And so they're even able to tell when someone's cursing if it's in a good way or a bad way. So this just means that people are talking about the Super Bowl negatively enough that the platform's able to pick it up. And what I'm seeing a lot of is it worth the risk during a pandemic to be holding such a huge event?
So they're concerned about that. That's sort of the overwhelming feeling.
For sure.
For me, when I'm thinking about this year's Super Bowl, I think I have a little bit of a more positive outlook on what it can do and what it can provide. Obviously, we're not going to have those large in-person gatherings or parties, whether it be at the Super Bowl itself or for everyone watching from home, with all the regulations and guidelines for the pandemic. But it is going to be kind of one of those first big events that everyone will be tuning into, everyone will be experiencing simultaneously, where everyone's going to be at home. And what better thing that we'll have to do on February 7th than watch the Super Bowl and experience that as a united front, in this country. So I think there is going to be kind of that communal feeling, even while apart, among consumers for the Super Bowl.
Is the virtual Super Bowl party a thing?
It is. I'm sure there'll probably be some Zooms, just like with everything right now. People are gathering together to watch.
So, I mean, it's so fascinating, Sarah, what you were saying there about the negative sentiment going into this. And of course, it's so difficult right now to strike the right tone. And if I'm thinking about this from the perspective of brands and advertisers, many brands have been announced that they're pulling out from advertising. Even many iconic brands, right? Even Coke won't have an ad this year, and they advertise, I don't know, for how many decades. I mean, I wrote down a quote from the spokesperson at Coke, a quote from Coke. The choice was made to ensure that we are investing in the right resources during these unprecedented times. And that's sort of a typical statement. There's sort of a nervousness around sort of, striking the right tone. So when we think about, obviously, advertising, this is the biggest advertising event of the year. What can we expect?
Yeah, and I think, there's, based on what you said, I think there's a couple reasons for why some of those larger brands are opting out this year. At the top, a Super Bowl ad price, a 30-second ad costs around the same as it did last year, 5.5 to 5.6 million. Even though, we've seen a hit in the economy and with, many people's and companies' budgets to be able to fund a Super Bowl ad. So cost may play into that. Although, we talk about Coke, Pepsi, Budweiser, some of these large companies that are backing out of advertising their parent brand, but they're still advertising their sub brands or their sister brands. And so, some of that goodwill where they're trying to reallocate resources to other things like COVID-19 relief or, the fight for social justice, that might be seen as a little bit more self-serving, especially if they're advertising for, PepsiCo has a bunch of snack foods, that will advertise in the Super Bowl, and then Budweiser has like Michelob Ultra, Bud Light, etc. So it's cost, but I'm sure a lot of backing out in a way is actually, these brands trying to generate goodwill for themselves.
Yeah, I think these brands are definitely being considerate of how advertising is being seen this year. And, that's for good reason. Positive social sentiment around mentions of Super Bowl ads has dipped from 82% last year to 51% this year. So this is a very valid
quite a big
worry.
drop, yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely a big drop. Consumers are ready and willing to call out brands. And I think brands that either A, don't appropriately entertain consumers with their ads, or B, play to consumers' emotional sides in a way that feels disingenuous, they're going to catch some heat for approaching things that way. So advertisers are taking a risk by engaging this year, and it could either really pay off and really distract and entertain consumers in a way that they appreciate, or they could find themselves under the microscope in a dangerous way.
I think one thing to keep a note too is that part of the reason I think for some of maybe these advertisers deciding not to have an ad this year, or even the overall costs being down a little bit, is that there is still so much unknown that went into the Super Bowl and the season as a whole, where you're making these plans months in advance. And 2 months ago, we didn't know what the state of the pandemic was going to be in February. We didn't know if the Super Bowl was officially going to be on February 7th or not. And so I think all of that unknown kind of helps kind of couch why some of these brands might have decided, this year isn't the right time for us. Yeah. We'll do that next year.
So what is the right tone? Is there one?
I mean, for me, we've talked so much on the Comper Media team about, in the early months of this pandemic, even then, how people were growing fatigued of the "we're with you" ads and, we've got your back and that kind of stuff, because every single brand was saying it. And, a lot of people thought, well, I don't think I need my, Oreo cookie to be with me. Like, it's a cookie. It's not like a mortgage lender. It's not like a bank. So I think, for a lot of these companies, a lot of which are consumer goods companies that advertise during the Super Bowl, a really important, tone that is going to resonate with consumers is just recognizing that, everybody's having hardships right now, whether that be COVID related, whether that be social justice related, and, find a way to, personalize their brand and have it relate with consumers. So whether that's, certain at-home scenarios, any humorous at-home scenarios you can bring up, maybe Zoom mishaps. We've all had one of those that, can make these ads relatable and not just a brand chiming from the top about, that they're so supportive of customers without tangibly showing why, perhaps.
Yeah, I agree. Consumers are well aware that the number one purpose of ads is to sell product. It's not to unite the world and solve all our problems. They know that. They're not fooled by any such messaging. So they really want to be entertained. I actually saw a tweet that really summed this up. Someone complaining how, quote, we're going to get Doritos commercials about being resilient and how America is strong and how we need to talk to each other and work together, while they're marketing their new spicy habanero with a hint of lime and mint chips. So, that says it all. They are very cognizant of the fact that these ads are trying to sell them something. So,
in a way, isn't it an opportunity, right? In the way with these other brands are sort of stepping back. If you can get the right tone and you're there and you're present, and you've got these millions and millions of eyeballs watching your ad. It's still an opportunity, right?
For sure.
I think, speaking to that too, I think there really is a little bit of game theory that these brands have to think about when they're choosing what tone to strike for these ads, where if every brand is talking about unity and coming together, it's going to be very monotonous and none are going to stand out. And the message is going to be lost, where consumers are going to be like, all right, whatever. At the same time, if everyone was making a humorous ad, the reaction would probably be, we're living in a pandemic. How can everyone be treating this, just as a joke? So I definitely think you have to kind of think about, for these brands, like, okay, how many people are going to talk about unity and be serious? How many people are going to speak to humor? What is our brand? What is our identity? Where can we fit into that spectrum? And what's the best, decision to make for our personal brand? Where every brand can't do a humorous ad, every brand can't do a unity ad, and kind of figuring out what they expect the marketplace to be and where do they fit into that.
Yeah. So are there any either particular ads or particular themes that you're looking forward to seeing on February 7th?
I'm really looking forward to the DoorDash ad, simply because it's their first time advertising in the Super Bowl, and DoorDash has been such a big brand during the pandemic. Mm-hmm. They've really become known to pretty much everyone at this point. So they're in a really unique position compared to some of the other brands advertising, in that their brand is inherently tied to what everyone's going through right now. So I think that could either be really advantageous for them, or they could end up stumbling, since they are so closely related to the negative environment that we're in right now.
Right. Yeah. It kind of, they've been one of the brands of the moment, right? Or brands of the pandemic. So it kind of just seems fitting.
Right.
DoorDash is interesting too, because a lot of their sports integration right now has been under a mindset of giving back. And so they had a campaign with Prince Amukamara, who is a former, or maybe might be still the current player, where he helped give back, and the NBA they partnered with as well to have kind of these campaigns that are also looking to give back to the community. So would probably be a smart tone to continue that in their sports integration for the Super Bowl.
Yeah, and I think, we've talked about Coke, Pepsi's, Bud's departure. So I think that leaves an opportunity for, some of the newbies, or maybe, the smaller brands that, we only see pop up come Super Bowl time. I don't think they're advertising anymore, but, GoDaddy.com was a staple of, the Super Bowl in the mid 2000s. So, there are newcomers like Chipotle, DoorDash, as Sarah mentioned, Huggies. Those brands are, making their Super Bowl debuts. So I'm interested to see, what tone that we've been talking about they take in terms of how they're, selling their restaurant or their diapers or what have you.
I didn't realize Huggies this is the first time at the Huggies diapers.
Yeah. And it's interesting too, because, it's kind of a similar theme. It's like a bunch of at-home brands who, may not have experienced the financial hardship that some other products and services faced earlier in 2020. So, speaking to Colin's point before, they might have had the budget to plan out a Super Bowl ad and then, implement it come Super Bowl time. So I'm definitely interested in seeing what the newbies do.
I was interested because you mentioned Huggies. I have seen the research suggesting that there's going to be fewer babies born in 2021. So interesting that they're out there promoting. My background is always financial services. So I was interested to see ETrade coming back and doing. When I saw the preview of the ad, doing these sort of at home workouts, sort of quirky at home workouts, so sort of like around the theme of working out your financial situation, and also TurboTax, I think, is planning a big campaign where it's promoting its live feature. So it's quite interesting to see some of the sort of the themes of the pandemic, I guess, being reflected in some of the advertising, whether it's connecting virtually with a tax advisor or doing at home workouts, related to your financial health. So interesting. Well, I guess we'll see what happens. Another reason to watch, along with the halftime show and of course the game. So can advertisers sort of take any sort of lessons for the future from this?
I think so. So one of the things that I'm interested in seeing is the Super Bowl and NFL in general, is it crisis proof, where there are so many brands that leverage live sports, NFL and college football being the top two among those. And it'll be interesting to see over the years what the return on investment is going to look like, with, the Super Bowl being the first marquee big worldwide television event that's taking place since the pandemic started. So I think that's going to be interesting for companies to see if the NFL remains strong, and, we're expecting ratings to be, at least 90 million viewers, probably more. So it's just really going to be interesting to see what the brands, in the future, if they're going to rely on the NFL as much when it's not Super Bowl time. Because if the NFL is crisis proof, then that might be a key thing to market against for years to come.
I think that this is an opportunity for brands to get an answer to a question that we've gotten a lot this year from clients, which is, how does our brand address social responsibility in a time when there's so much going on in our country that consumers need help with, whether it's the pandemic or Black Lives Matter? Clients are concerned about not addressing these things in the right way. And so this is the largest stage during the year for advertising. And so they should really be paying close attention to which ads that do have a social responsibility angle, which of those resonate with consumers and which don't. So, for example, Budweiser has been really public with their decision to pass on a TV spot this year, but they've been running this ad all over the place saying, we're deciding to pass on this. And that hasn't actually been received all that well by consumers. Social conversations about the brand aren't majority negative. One tweet from a consumer said, Budweiser is skipping Super Bowl ads this year for the first time since '83. Instead, they're funding Get the Vaccine ads. Surely those ads won't have a Budweiser logo, right? Pure altruism, question mark?
Right.
So even something that seems like a brand really cares about consumers can come off the wrong way. So it's going to be interesting to see, how do brands go about this? What specific details are different from brand to brand, and which of those resonate well with consumers?
I do think that's a great point, because I think, the COVID-19 crisis has amplified so many trends. And then, of course, you've got the Super Bowl, which is an amplification of an amplification, right? Certainly from an advertising perspective. And if brands now have to be much more, they need to take ownership of what they stand for and their values, then obviously it's amplified in this Super Bowl setting, and it summarizes the difficult line that they need to try to walk going forward. But let's go back. I did wanted to talk about sort of opportunities, not just for the big brands that are going to advertise at the Super Bowl, but also other brands that obviously trying to react and respond to this. Like, not everybody's a big advertiser. How can we? How should they look at this as an opportunity?
Yeah, I think one of the things that gets lost in the Super Bowl in terms of brand and marketing presence is that, the Super Bowl ads themselves, that's the headline. That's the big money where we see it costs $5.5 million for 30 seconds of ad time. But the Super Bowl week itself is the biggest week in sports advertising and in connection with consumers throughout the entire year. It's like the CES for the sports world, where every year brands flock down to wherever the Super Bowl is being hosted, and have incredible amounts of on-site activations and ways to engage with consumers. And because of the pandemic this year, it's pretty much largely non-existent in terms of on-site. Obviously people aren't traveling there that much, and they won't be there for the entire week leading up. And brands don't feel safe or feel it's the right move to send people down there unless they have some sort of presence already in Florida or in Tampa. So instead, what we're seeing is a lot more virtual opportunities and virtual engagement from both the NFL and from outside brands. I know every year the NFL has a thing called the NFL Taste. And this year is the NFL Taste at Home, where they have a couple celebrity chefs that will be, walking through some recipes and ways to enhance their cooking. It'll all be virtual. A lot of brand or industry experts expect this to be kind of the Zoom Bowl, where brands will be, taking advantage of these Zoom software capabilities to connect with consumers, and whether it be virtual tailgates, which we've seen a lot of throughout the college and NFL football seasons, to pretty solid success so far. I think that will be kind of a key component of how brands are trying to reach consumers moving forward. And it'll be really interesting to see what the success rate and what works for this week, because when things inevitably hopefully go back to a normal, or at least the next normal, there's no reason to stop using these technological aspects as well, where you can partner the on-site activation with this digital activation to help reach not only consumers at the stadium, but consumers around the country as well.
Interesting.
Yeah, I agree. I also think it's important to bring up again, like we said before, people aren't gathering in huge groups. They're not going to a sports bar. And so they're not going to be distracted by things while they watch the game like they have in years past. So while it's been popular for a long time now for people to be scrolling Twitter during a big event like the Super Bowl, I think this year more than ever, viewers are going to be glued to their second screens during the game and during ads. So it's not a new concept, but social platforms are going to be more important than ever for brands that don't have the resources to be participating in TV advertising. Someone like Wendy's, for example, they have a really well-established presence on Twitter. And so they could easily gain a lot of traction and positive brand awareness by participating in a Super Bowl conversation in an authentic
So
way.
engagement could be up this year.
Yeah, I definitely think it will be.
Yeah, and one thing I'll just follow up with is the second screen is obviously, so important. And like Sarah was saying, there's a lot less opportunity for face-to-face conversation, of course, unless people are having, Super Bowl watch parties over Zoom. So it's extremely likely that people are going to be pairing their Super Bowl experience with some other, form of a marketing platform, whether that be, a cell phone screen, iPad, laptop, etc.
All right, so we're almost out of time. I'm going to ask you a minute for your game predictions. Before I do, I want to ask you one last question. If you could sum up very briefly your sort of key lesson for brands coming away from Super Bowl 55.
Yeah, so like I was saying before, I think it's going to be really important to see the NFL's future as an advertising platform. It all depends on, how well the Super Bowl goes and how well, brands kind of capitalize on the moment of the Super Bowl. So just to see how well sports is a driver of eyeballs for, years to come is definitely something that I'm going to be taking a look at.
I would say my main takeaway for brands is that this is a really volatile environment that we're in right now, and that can either pay off or it could really hurt you if you make the wrong move. So this is going to be a lesson in how to perform when we're in such an emotional time in the country.
I think for me, this has kind of been a theme throughout a lot of our sports reports in the library, is that you have to reach consumers and reach sports fans where they are. And sports fans are using different technologies, reaching different mediums, and it varies based on, who that consumer is. So brands increasingly have to make sure that they're reaching these fans in the ways that best suit those fans.
Perfect. That's a good way to end it. But finally, let's do game predictions. So who's going to win?
I'm following Vegas. Vegas currently has the line at Chiefs by 3 points. So I'm going to say Chiefs 27, Bucks 24.
We're going to hold you to it.
I don't know if I have a specific score prediction. I'm not in that deep, but unfortunately, I hate to say it, but I think the Bucs are going to win. Tom Brady has something to prove with his first year now in the Patriots, and he's also playing for the first team in NFL history that gets to compete in the Super Bowl on its home turf. So I think both of those things are going to give the Bucs some serious momentum.
And then I guess the final word for our sports analyst, which is, we're going to take his comments really seriously on this one.
Well, I think, in the battle of, the best quarterback of all time and potentially the best, most talented quarterback we've ever seen, I'm going to head it to the young gun in Patrick Mahomes. I think that offense is so explosive. And the fact that they're favored, as a sports bettor myself, I will be taking the Chiefs -3 in the Super Bowl. So I hope and expect the Chiefs to be able to cover that spread and walk away as Super Bowl champions for back-to-back years now.
Excellent. I'll be the halftime show will be the winner. No, I'm just kidding. I think either way, of course, you've got a great narrative, right? You've got either the sort of like the all-conquering hero in Tom Brady, or you've got the sort of the new heroes arising. So either way, we've got a good story coming out of this, which hopefully will be, a good feel-good story. All right. Well, thank you. Thank you very much to my guests. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to rate and review us. We will catch you again on the next episode of Little Conversation. Thank you, Colin. Thank you, Nick. Thank you, Sarah. If you want to know more about Mintel, who we are and what we do, head over to mintel.com and follow us on social media. We're on LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter and Facebook, and check out our blog for even more insights from our analysts. Thank you.